Hello everybody and welcome to this Revise with MissW session, which is going to focus on question 5 on paper 1 of the AQA GCSE English language exam. So question 5 will ask you to write, describe or narrate, okay? So it's worth 50% of the marks on paper 1, 40 marks in total. So it's something that we really do need to practice, timing and content wise. Now there will be 2 questions to choose from. One will be linked to an image. Now you may have 2 describe questions, 2 narrate questions, or 1 of each. So it's really important that you learn the skills for both of these. So you need to learn how you write an answer for writing to describe and how you write an answer for writing to narrate. Now they are very similar and I have other videos on my channel which do go through each of the skills. But they're very similar in the content in that they're both hugely descriptive. The subtle difference between the two is that writing to narrate essentially is writing a story, so there's a greater focus on the characters and the plot within that. So you'll need to be thinking about the thoughts and feelings if you choose, or if it's chosen for you if they do 2 narrate questions. So if you choose that question, that's what you really need to be thinking about. Now you have 45 minutes to answer this. I always say to my students to spend 5 minutes planning this question, 35 minutes writing it and then 5 minutes checking at the end. And it does actually specify within the question itself to allow enough time for planning and checking. So the question we're going to be looking at today is this one, okay? So like I said, it explains at the top, this is the text that you'll have on your exam. Spend 45 minutes on it, make sure you plan and make sure you leave time to check your work. And the question is this: you are going to write an article for a travel blog whose audience is young adults. Okay, and the 2 questions here, you can either write a description as suggested by the picture, or write the opening part of a story about a person who goes travelling. So here we've got a describe and a narrate question, and it's up to you which one you choose. Now that word suggested in the first question, again, I tell my students to change that to imply. So write a description that implies something about this image or inspires. So either implies or inspires, and that kind of helps lead them in the right direction. So you don't need to stay for the whole of your description within that image itself, okay? So you can just use that as inspiration, or you can think about it as it's implying somewhere else to go, okay? So if you're thinking about that and you're using that image, then you don't need to stay in that one place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the timer on the screen for a 5-minute plan, and then I'm going to go through some ideas that you could use for your plan if you have struggled to do that. And then I'm going to pop the timer on for the 35 minutes and then the 5 minutes check-in time, okay? So you can sit and do this tutorial all in one go, or you can split it into sections if you wish, okay? So remember that it's asking you to write an article for a travel blog, okay? And then you're either doing writing to describe or writing the opening part of a story. So I'll just pop the timer on for 5 minutes and you need to plan your answer now. Okay, so I'm hoping that you've managed to get some things down on paper as to the kinds of things that you could include for either of these questions. But if not, then I'm going to give you some guidance on the kinds of things I would consider including in a plan for this question. Okay, so remember that this is the image that you're looking at. Okay, and the way I plan it is I start with thinking about the five senses, and I draw 4 boxes within on the image itself, or I think of 4 things in my mind if I've chosen the question that isn't linked to the picture. And I focus on those 4 things, and I literally list about 10 things using the 5 senses that I can see, hear, taste, touch and smell. So here I've just focused on the flag, the mural on the top of the roof, the light coming through the windows and the people rushing about, okay? So I've literally just listed these things. Now this is the content for your answer, okay? So that's what you need to think about, is what content am I going to include? And you can plan that content just by using the 5 senses. Then you need to think about the form that you've been asked to write in. So as I said, the question stated you need to write a blog, okay, an article for a blog. Now a blog is just a chatty conversational web page, okay, it's like having an online diary. And whenever you're asked to write a blog and it says an article, you've got to write it in the style of kind of a news article. So you need to think about having a headline and perhaps 1 or 2 subheadings within your answer. And that definitely hits that kind of tick for the form within your answer. And then I need to think about the structure of my answer as well. Now there's a video on my channel which goes through an easy way to structure either a writing to describe or writing to narrate question for this specific question on the paper. And I call it the drop, shift, zoom, leave, okay, structure, stolen from Nick Wells on Twitter. And I just think it's really great because it's something that you can learn and you can easily use this structure for any of these questions. So your drop, so the first part of your answer is you literally provide an overview of the actual image or the image in your mind, okay, and you use the 5 senses, okay, so use the content list that you've got and you literally just describe it as an overview. Then the second part of your answer, you either use a flashback or a flash forward, and you have a contrast of atmosphere. So that image showed, I think, rush hour in the morning. So then you might want to either flash forward to, you know, midnight when things are much quieter, or you might want to change like months in advance or go back months previously and think about how a character has changed if you've chosen the narrate one. Then the third part of your answer, you zoom back to the original time, but you zoom in on one of those boxes that I drew within the image itself, okay? And you describe that in immense detail. Now, if you're doing writing to narrate, then this is the point at which you really need to think about how that one thing is significant to your character that you've chosen within your story. And then the final part of your answer, you leave the building or you leave the place that you've been describing all along, and you describe either from above the location or external to the building. So here we would leave Grand Central Station and we would describe leaving that building. Again, you are creating contrasts in your writing, so you're thinking about how things are very different outside. So the things that you need to think about within your plan are the content, the form and the actual structure of your answer. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that you need to plan in if you haven't done so already. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the 35-minute timer on the screen now, so you can do 35 minutes of timed writing, and then I'm going to immediately pop another 5 minutes on just at the end to make sure that you have checked your work. Now remember that you are being marked on your varied punctuation, your varied use of sentence structures, and different lengths of paragraphs, interesting use of vocabulary, obviously interesting structure. So if you do the drop, shift, zoom, leave, you're ticking that box. So all of these things you need to consider, okay? So in your check-in time at the end, I would make sure you've got your punctuation, make sure you've got all of your linguistic devices, make sure you've paragraphed. Consider capital letters, very easy to forget to use capitals, okay? So all of those things need to be checked within that last 5 minutes. So get your paper ready, get your pen ready, and I'm going to pop the 35-minute timer on the screen now. And what I'll do is I'll also pop the questions back on for you so that you can actually see the question in front of you. Okay, that is the end of your writing time. You've had 35 minutes to write now. What I would like you to do now is to spend 5 minutes checking that work through. So make sure you've paragraphed, make sure you've included 5 types of punctuation, make sure you've got different starts of your sentences, make sure you've got varied sentence structures, okay? All of these things that you need to include for this answer, you're focusing on quality as opposed to quantity. So you've now got 5 minutes to make sure that you've done as much as you can with regards to all of those things within the mark scheme. Okay, everybody, that is your 45 minutes up for this question, this revision session. So we have now come to the end of Revise with Miss W for paper 1. Okay, so hopefully it has been helpful. Hopefully it has kind of pushed you a little more to do the revision on a more regular basis. Please stay tuned because I will be doing a Revise with Miss W for paper 2 as well. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, and you can follow me on Twitter at AQA Exams, tweet me any questions, and you can also send me questions via the website aquaexams.wordpress.com. Thanks ever so much for listening. I'll be back soon.